My name is Juyang and I'm a North Korean defector. My parents defected to South Korea first, but we maintained contact and they sent money and other resources to support me. I also did private business, selling gloves, socks, and cigarettes to warehouse workers. In 2010, I escaped too, and in 2011, I reunited with my family in South Korea. I have since been in the popular television program Now on My Way to Meet You, which features female North Korean defectors. Ask me anything. Hi Miss Ju. As one of the mods of Reddit's North Korea news, I've seen many articles detailing North Korea's foreign policy, military capabilities, and loud public pronouncements. An unfortunate side of those big picture articles is that the simplest aspects of North Korean culture often get lost in the mix. I'm sure many here will ask you about war and hunger, so on a lighter note, how are North Korean weddings celebrated? North Korean women really want to experience romance. In North Korea, we wear traditional Korean-style clothing for wedding dresses. However, more recently, due to the influence of foreign media, some North Korean women have started wanting to wear white wedding dresses at their weddings. But that hasn't been possible in North Korea yet. So people are adapting the traditional style wedding dresses and making them look more beautiful. Another thing is that the wedding ceremony is usually held twice, once at the groom's house and once at the bride's house. But if it's too expensive to prepare all the food for both, they sometimes combine the ceremonies and hold it just once at one side's house. I was a volunteer at the Olympic Village during the London 2012 Olympics, and it was really interesting to see so many different cultures and personalities from countries all around the world. I remember seeing a few North Korean athletes around the village, and the only way I could describe them was like zombies. They looked dead behind the eyes, as if all their personality had been drained out of them. My question is, when you lived in North Korea, what was the general perception of people living in the rest of the world? I can understand why you would see North Korean athletes as zombies. It's very risky for them to show any curiosity about their surroundings when they're abroad, and that fear makes people very stiff. When I was in North Korea, I didn't think of foreigners as bad. I actually thought they would be nice, and I wanted to meet them too. But you can't express those kinds of thoughts in public. When I was in Cheongjin, I once saw a Russian man, and I was so fascinated that I stared at him until he got so far away that he disappeared into a tiny spot. What kind of feelings did you have when you arrived in South Korea and saw the quality of life that many people have there? How did you adjust to it? I'm most interested in the psychological experiences someone goes through when entering a completely new environment. When I got here, I felt like South Koreans could eat the kind of food that North Koreans only have on special occasions, every single day. Most ordinary North Koreans eat corn rice as their staple food, but it's quite rough. On special days like Kim Il-sung's birthday, some people can eat white rice. In fact, some people can't even have white rice on those special days. But in South Korea, even homeless people eat white rice. As for how I adjusted, well, it tastes pretty good, so I'd say I'm adjusting just fine. Though sometimes I do miss North Korean food too. You mentioned that your parents defected first. Did the North Korean government know about this, and did you face any repercussions because of it? In North Korea, it's very hard to know the weather forecast because of frequent power cuts, unlike in South Korea. So we made up a cover story, that my father had died at sea, and my mother and other family members had left our house to try to find any remains of him. That left me alone in our house, but the secret police came to ask me questions. I stuck to the story, telling them that my family had become separated, and I stonewalled their questions. I knew the secret police used people in the neighborhood to monitor my behavior, but I just pretended not to notice and carried on living my life. Since crossing the border into South Korea, have you experienced any negativity or prejudice from South Korean people? South Korean people can be quite discriminating, for example, against Korean Chinese people living in South Korea. When I speak, I have a dialect, and to many South Koreans, it sounds like how Korean Chinese people from Northeast China speak. Sometimes people have asked if I'm from there, and I could sense negativity in their tone. Also, one time my aunt was riding in a taxi when the driver asked where she was from. When she replied, North Korea, he stopped the car and asked her to get out. Even so, personally, I think that being open about where I'm from helps me adapt to life here in the long run. Do you have close relationships with other defectors you've met? Have you found that your experiences in North Korea were significantly different from theirs? Yes, I have a lot of friends who were born in North Korea. I don't have school friends from South Korea because I didn't attend school here. so I made many friends among North Korean defectors who are the same age as me. I also have some South Korean friends as well. Among North Korean defectors, of course, there are similarities in our experiences, but there are many differences too. In particular, people who have come here more recently, for instance, those who left last year, talk about the changes in North Korean society since I left, and I'm very keen to meet them. For example, more recent defectors tell us how they were able to watch South Korean media soon after its release in South Korea, and how they have access to more varied media than when I was there. So I really enjoy meeting North Koreans who left more recently. Hello, Miss Yang. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for doing this AMA. By doing so, you're giving people a rare opportunity to see what life is actually like in your country, rather than anything skewed by the media. As for my question, what's the hardest thing you've had to adjust to? How shocked were you when you realized that North Korean propaganda was, for the most part, entirely false? Hello, thanks for your question. There were a lot of new culture shocks to get used to and understand. For instance, toilets and ATMs, using an electronic card to ride the subway, escalators, elevators, all of those things. Also, in South Korea, they use a lot of Konglish, or borrowed words, so I had to get used to that. What was it like to go from a world with very little of today's modern technology to a world with the internet and its ability to connect you with people and information all over the world? At first, it was kind of like arriving in the modern world in a time machine. There were so many things I didn't know, but learning one thing after another by trying them out was really fun. Even typing on a computer felt completely novel and exciting at first. It's been 3 years, but even now, there are still so many new things to discover. During your time in North Korea, did you ever view any Western media, like movies or TV shows? If so, what ones? Yes, I watched a lot. I don't remember all the titles, but in particular, I remember 007, James Bond, and Drop Zone. Also, Charlie's Angels and The Count of Monte Cristo. We used to think that Western films were somehow more advanced than South Korean films. So if you watched them, you would talk about them with your other friends who had seen the same films. For the most part, we as outsiders hear about Pyongyang this and Pyongyang that. Are regional politics still at play in North Korea? And what do people from the countryside think of Pyongyangers? Thanks for doing this, AMA. People from the countryside think of Pyongyangites as if they're from a completely different country. It's known that only those recognized by the party as the most loyal are allowed to live there. For instance, when we travel, if you want to go to Pyongyang, you have to get a special travel permit. To my memory, normal travel permits have one red line, but the ones required to enter Pyongyang have 2 red lines. Today, June 4th, marks the 25th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square protests, in which hundreds of students were killed for advocating pro-democracy. What are your thoughts on this, given that protesting and going against the government in North Korea is forbidden? Even though I wasn't born at the time, I learned about it when I was in North Korea as well. I found out about it in the 2000s, since people talked about it, and I saw a film about it too. I also heard about coup attempts in North Korea from adults when I was young, but they were all discovered by Kim Jong-il. The leaders were executed, and others were sent to political prison camps. So people are very afraid of getting involved in anything like that. Do the people of North Korea really believe that Kim Jong-il and his father and grandfather actually have superhuman powers? Or do they just say they do out of fear? I think people believe it kind of like people believe in the Bible. Well, that's the case for children. But when you grow up, you realize those stories don't make sense, yet you still have to memorize them well for school tests in order to graduate. More recently, among close friends, people will complain that this kind of ideological education doesn't actually help you in life. I felt the same way too. Many people who travel to North Korea as tourists believe that by engaging with North Koreans, they can humanize foreigners and perhaps help change North Koreans' perceptions of them. However, others believe tourism there is wrong because much of the money goes to support an oppressive government. In your opinion, do you think tourism in North Korea is a positive force or a negative one? Thanks for your question. Firstly, I think that if North Korean citizens have the chance to meet foreigners, then tourism can be a good thing. North Koreans are curious about foreigners, and if they can interact with them, they may feel more friendly and see them as normal human beings. However, I'm personally not comfortable with the North Korean government profiting from it. So there are pros and cons. I hope that if people visit North Korea and pay their way, they can make more requests to the government and see more than just the good course around Pyongyang and so on. That was the 20th video on this channel, a small but meaningful milestone for me. Every video takes time, effort, and passion, and I'm truly grateful to everyone who's been watching, supporting, and growing together with this channel. In the comments, feel free to share your thoughts or any experiences you've come across related to North Korea. See you in the next video.